So you can write these on a piece of paper. Don't just copy everything that's on the screen, but kind of listen to my voice as you're writing the words. The first word I'd like you to define is de-individuation. Now, the nice thing about this unit is a lot of the words almost imply their meaning within the writing. So D means to take away your sense of self. De-individuation is when you lose your sense of self or self-control in a group or in a case or situation where you feel anonymous. Again, you lose your sense of self or self-control in a group, in a mob, or in a case where you feel anonymous or where anonymity is fostered. Okay, so I'm going to give a couple of examples. You can write one of them, you can write all of them, and eventually we're going to apply this to a film. One example I right away think of is like a mosh pit where people are dancing. People tend to not feel responsible for their actions. They may hit people, they may drag people, they may even step on people and not necessarily feel as accountable as they would if they were alone with the person. Another case could be a lot of this holiday shopping where people, again, might trample a worker that tries to open a door. I know a few years ago in Long Island, New York, where I grew up, there was a case where somebody was opening up a Walmart and all the customers trampled the security guard and he was killed. There are many cases of de-individuation, maybe even in a crowd at a game. You might be more willing to shout at the refs or curse, where if you were alone in the gym with this ref, you might not do the same thing. And finally, my last example is at Penn State when Sandusky was accused of molesting kids. A few days or weeks even after it occurred, Joe Paterno was fired. The football season wasn't even completed yet, and a lot of the kids at Penn State, not all of them, not even a majority of them, out of the 40,000 students, I think about 2,000 students took to the streets, and it became a situation where people were out of control. They lost their self-control, they lost their sense of accountability, and so I'll show this as the first video on YouTube of a Penn State scenario.
Night at Penn State. A little after 10 p.m., the trustees come out with dramatic. Joe Paterno fired, the university president fired, all for their role in the child abuse scandal there, and you saw the emotions explode across campus.
We're seeing it again right now, end of an era at Penn State, and mixed emotions, and yes, many unhappy people about it, taking to the streets, fighting with police overnight. Our weekend anchor, Dan Harris, was caught right in the middle of it, and he joins us now from State College, Pennsylvania. How you doing this morning, Dan?
I'm doing all right, Robin. Good morning to you. It was really a wild night. It all started after students here learned that Joe Paterno had been fired and that it had happened over the phone, not even a face-to-face meeting. The response was ferocious. The news touched off a protest that went very wrong, with special wrath reserved for the media. The country looks at this, that you're out here protesting this way.
Why are we protesting?
What about,
Reno! What about the victims? Why is the news all about Joe Paterno and not the kids? It's the media who singled out Joe Paterno. The media never talked about the kids. They made him look like a freaking villain. You call him a legend, treat him like a legend.
Do you think he'd want you to be doing this, though?
No.
Light post came down, and then...
That's my favorite part of the video, is where that kid is asked, do you think Joe Paterno would want you to be doing this in the streets? And he says no. So again, when we're alone, we act one way. When we're in a group, it becomes a totally different situation. These police actually had to use tear gas to get the kids out of the street. Again, this was the night Joe Paterno was fired. And what's really interesting is Joe Paterno comes out of his home and even reacts to the whole situation.
Paterno, the 84-year-old beloved head coach of the Nittany Lions, gone. Taken down in a scandal involving alleged child sex abuse carried out by a former top coach. How difficult was this decision for you guys?
Of course, anything like this is difficult.
Moments later, students were in the street.
Joe Paul's not the one who should be taking the fall for this. Save Joe Paul!
Why aren't hundreds and thousands of people coming into the street in support of those 8 kids who were abused?
I would agree with that too, and I'd like to say as a Penn State student, I think my heart goes out first to the victims and the families, and I hope they receive their justice.
Joe Paterno, who said he was disappointed by the decision, came out of his home and urged calm.
Hey, look, get a good night's sleep. Study, right? We still got things to do.
We love you, Joe! We love you, Joe!
But still, it took several hours for police to finally retake control of the streets.
Again, this wasn't everybody at Penn State. It was a couple of thousand kids out of the 40,000, but it happened and it got out of control. As you saw, they like flipped the news van at a point. That's the part that really gets me, is when they flip this van right here. I mean, it's a huge van and they just take it down.
The news touched off a protest that went.
All right, so that was de-individuation. Next word that you want to take notes on is group polarization. What you want to write down for this one is that when we are with like-minded people, our view gets stronger or more extreme. When we are with like-minded people, our view gets stronger or more extreme. They've done many studies with this, maybe taking people who are pro-life or pro-choice, letting them discuss their opinions in a room, and ultimately, when people are with the people who share the same views, their views get stronger. This happens in politics, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. This happens with religion. Even, I think our textbook uses the example of the KKK, that if extreme racist group were to meet in a room, they would become more extremely racist. It is only with, and you want to add this to the definition, in mixed company, only in mixed company do we tend to moderate our views or control our views or water down our views. So when we're with like-minded people, we get stronger. But when we're in a mixed group of people with different views, we tend to moderate our viewpoint. So again, for the examples, you could have placed politics, Democrats becoming more strongly pro-Hillary Clinton, or Republicans becoming more pro-Donald Trump. Either way, people get more extreme in their views. If you don't relate to politics, or you feel it just doesn't connect with you, another way to look at this is gossip. When people gossip about somebody and talk about someone, if they're in agreement, their views only get stronger. Let's say I just don't like her. She's got such an attitude. Oh, and you and you just ew it up. And by the time you're done talking about this person, how much you hate them, you hate them even more. You don't necessarily feel better about talking about them. You actually feel angrier and like you hate this person even more. So gossiping tends to strengthen your hatred towards someone. Again, if everyone's in agreement. If there's someone in the gossip group who goes, hey, I don't think that's right, you shouldn't say that, usually that tends to moderate people's viewpoint. Okay, the next word we're going to go over is number 1 in a packet you're going to receive if you were absent. But if you want to write it on a piece of paper, minority influence is the person who tries to go against the group. And sometimes this person may change the group norms. They may even change the world. If you don't know, this is Mahatma Gandhi, and he is famous for the quotation, "Be the change you wish to see." He went on hunger strikes and protests to try to free India from the control of Great Britain. Not only did he succeed, but the countries of India and Pakistan actually became independent nations. And extremists ended up assassinating Gandhi. A lot of Muslims and Hindus were in disagreement of how the countries should be bordered and laid out, but he was somebody who did try to change the status quo, try to change the way things were normally done. If you don't relate to Gandhi, maybe you relate to Martin Luther King, or the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., who was actually inspired by Gandhi's nonviolence, and he fought for rights of African Americans during the 60s. He too was assassinated. These are all people who try to change the group. In some classes, we actually talked about the other vocab, the in-group bias, where we tend to favor people who are in our group. In all the blocks, we actually made a circle of all the groups we belong to. For example, we're all Penn Manor, we're all from Pennsylvania, maybe some people are from other states. That's our in-group. And then the groups that we don't belong to, perhaps other schools like Hempfield and Township, would be our out-group. I'll talk more about this and continue with this on the following day.